We are so happy to announce that we have a new integration with Income Lab. So right now we're going to see the PreciseFP and Income Lab demo. I have Justin Fitzpatrick with me and Richard Thoeny. Justin, before co-founding Income Lab, Justin spent over 15 years in financial services. Justin has led teams in advanced financial planning and portfolio strategy, managed the development of financial technology tools, and designed and executed strategies to enter new markets. Prior to his work in financial services, he spent 7 years in academia. He has taught at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Harvard University, Queen Mary, University of London, and the University of California. Justin has dedicated his career to being a teacher and student of financial planning and to advancing innovation in the industry. And Justin is an experienced public speaker and writer in his research and thought leadership on retirement income planning, has appeared in many well-known industry publications, earned his bachelor's from University of Michigan and PhD from MIT. And Justin is also, as you guys are going to understand all of these kind of abbreviations, he's a CFA, charter holder, and CFP professional. And Richard is our Executive Vice President of Product Strategy for PreciseFP. So I'm so happy to have both of you on today. We're going to go ahead and jump into the PreciseFP side first, and we will kind of give you a brief overview of what PreciseFP is, and then we will jump right into demonstrations. So we'll be inside of the system a lot today, showing you click-by-click demonstrations. And definitely reach out to us if you have any questions, and we're more than happy to help. But I'll go ahead and hand it over to Richard.
Thanks, Nora, appreciate it. So first of all, that's quite the introduction for Justin. I'm not sure you're going to appreciate what I have to say, and you're going to want to jump over to Justin.
You got to shorten that thing, yeah.
quite the background, yes.
Yes, it is.
Background.
I agree.
Yeah. So I'll just give you a quick kind of overview for those of you not familiar with PreciseFP, kind of where we came from, what we do, and we'll jump into a little bit of a demo, try to keep this pretty light and get into more on our Income Lab and our integration. But so just give you a little background on PreciseFP. Born out of a CFP advisor who just really disliked, to say the least, all the data gathering problems of sending information around, trying to collect things through physically writing them down, sending through email, all these sort of various ways of getting the data, having to rekey them into different systems, having inconsistent data, all the horrible things that go into trying to engage with your client, trying to get the information necessary to, take those next steps and really do financial planning well executed. So that was where it came from. Been around 16 plus years, so the platform is, very mature at this point. We've done a lot of, development in the platform over those 16 years, so very mature. Lots of integration partners. We're going to talk a little bit more about this, but lots and lots of ways to move data around, which is really a key to the Income Lab integration. So we connect with a lot of different systems. We gather data, we move data around pretty seamlessly. And then lots and lots and lots of clients on the platform. So thousands of users out there, happy users, lots of accolades on the platform over the last, years. So it's a little bit of the background. If you could pop to the next one, Nora. So what does PreciseFP do? The platform, like I said, very robust, lots of development over the last 16 years. We're going to focus today on kind of the two, what I would consider to be the primary use cases. So the platform is really designed around that client engagement, a really elegant way to interact with your client, a really elegant cyber secure way to go get data, move data, gather documents, and then just engage with that client and then move that data around through different systems. So that's what we're going to focus on today, is really that fact finding, that data gathering, that data sharing process, and then being able to move that data around between different systems. The platform has lots of other functionality in it. There's a whole workflow component. Sorry, I lost my screen there for a minute. Are we good? You guys still showing the screen? You're good, okay. There's a whole workflow component to it, kind of a set it, forget it. There's a lot of automated workflows. There's a lead gen platform, so we have web publishing, lead gen features that you can leverage and do publishing, put out lead gen on your own website through banners and links and all kinds of interesting things. We have service agreements and IPS that we support in the platform. We also have our own digital signature in the system, so it's an actual digital signature, not just electronic signature, meaning that it meets all the qualifications for e-sign, meets all the hashing requirements. Really nice feature. You know, then you get away from having to use like DocuSign or the equivalent out there, so it's not a disjointed experience for the investor. It's all an embedded signing experience, which is really nice. We have a different risk tolerance processing that you can use the platform for. But today we're going to focus on that client engagement, digital gathering of the data, sharing of the data, and then using that data to populate other systems. So that's what we're going to focus on today. So Nora, if I could take control, I will pop over and we'll go through a demo.
You got it.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to give a abbreviated sort of demo around that use case of gathering that data. But I'm going to start with the client experience. So from a client's or from a user's perspective, I'm the advisor. I'm in the platform. I'm looking at my book of business. Basically, here's all my clients. I can start with bringing in a new client. I could create a new client. I could import from another system. I just have a few set up here with my demo environment, but I could bring in a client from, you know, Redtail, Wealthbox, other different systems if I wanted to initiate that process. I've already had kind of a gold copy of my whatever record I'm dealing with. But I'm going to start with, I'm going to interact with Dale Fox. And with Dale, I want to engage with a form. So I'm going to go interact with Dale. I want to send out a data gathering, data sharing engagement to Dale. So I'm going to say I'm going to engage with the form. Now we have a whole host of templates that we provide in the platform. Actually, sorry, before we jump there, let me pop over here. So we have a whole host, we have a library of templates in the platform. So these templates are pre-built, optimized for different scenarios. So you can see we kind of categorize them here into fact finders, surveys and polls, sort of lead gen things. And if I drill into the fact finders, oops. If I drill into the fact finders, lots and lots of ways to go collect data. And as you can see, we have optimized ones based on the system that we're going to be interacting with. So for example, Redtail, we have an optimized fact finder. Basically, we know what systems upstream or downstream are going to be using this data, so we can go gather the appropriate data and optimize basically the fact finder for that scenario. But you could use any of them. You could use any of them to go collect the data. So I'm going to go over here to Dale. So I'm going to reach out to Dale and I'm going to engage Dale with one of those fact finders we call a form. In this case, I'm just going to use a generic fact finder. So not specifically optimized, but we're going to map all this data back into the system. So I'm going to interact with Dale with this fact finder. So a couple things. I could send it out to Dale. I could send it out to, if they had a co-client on the platform, I could send it out to both of them. And we're going to collect PII, so personally identifiable information. So we're going to send it out under an authenticated method. So we support multi-factor authentication, and I'll show you this in a minute on the client side. So they're going to have to authenticate into this process, and then we'll invite them into the platform. I can send this out immediately. Just say, okay, good, ready to go. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and send this out. We can also customize the emails. So I have a new email that's going to go out to the client. I can modify this any way I want. I can modify the template any way I want, colors, logos, branding, language, you know, they're all customizable. You can see we're pulling in with macros, we're pulling in specific information about this client into that experience. I could set up periodic reminders. So I could send this out. If Dale doesn't complete it, I could set this, for example, every 5 days for the next 30 days. Just send a nice little email reminder, and here's the email that Dale's going to get. Hey, Dale, you know, you haven't finished this yet. Let me know if you have any questions, kind of that thing. And then a nice thank you email at the end. So that's if I wanted to customize any of the emails, or I could just use the default. I can also review this. Maybe I have some information that I want to add. that I know about before I send this out. So I could create and edit this before I send it out. And we'll render a version that's exactly what the client's going to see, which is really nice. So you can see exactly what that experience is going to be like for the investor. And I think my internet is slow, of course. There we go. So this is what the client's going to see, and you can see that I've got some, branding in here and a picture and any logos we want to have. We can actually pull into this form, but I can go through and see what the client is actually going to get. So if I come in here and I, see whatever information we're going to gather, maybe I find something that is not correct or I want to change. I can go ahead and just modify it directly in here. Maybe I've got some other information. I can, they can upload copies of whatever information they want. So I can preview this before I send it out. We also do recognize the form factor that they're on. So if they're on a tablet, if they're on mobile, we're going to render it and have a reflexive, responsive design. So it'll actually show it in whatever form factor they're on. Probably not going to fill this out on a phone, but we do render it that way. So I'll just show you the desktop piece. So this way I can go through as the advisor. I can see exactly what the client's going to see. I can add any information, update any information. And then when I'm ready to send it out, I can just hit send. We're just going to shoot this off to Dale to collect this information. We also give you the option of copying a link to this. So maybe you want to send it out from your personal email or whatever the case may be, so that you know it's coming from you, a little bit of a different experience. But I'm going to go ahead and just send this out. So I sent it and I get engagement sent successfully. So I sent this out to Dale. So now I'm going to pop over and show you the experience from the investor's point of view. So Dale will get this email. Again, logos, branding, everything is customizable to you. And we're going to send Dale a link. So they're going to click this link and they're going to get a nice little intro page. You can explain this. You can embed videos. You can explain, whatever you want in here to kind of explain what they're going to be doing. And when they hit start, now it's the authenticated version. So we're going to go ahead and send them a PIN. I set this up as SMS. We support every kind of multi-factor authentication pretty much out there. I just set this one up to get a PIN number. And there's my PIN coming in. So I'm going to authenticate into the platform and then be able to complete this engagement. So now this investor is going to come in and they can complete anything they want, review it. So it's a very nice experience. Like I said, they can upload documents. So anything that they're actually invited into the platform. So anything that they're going to be putting in here is all cyber secure, which is super important. So no emails being sent around, no notes down on paper that's being handed back and forth. It's all done in a very, very cyber secure way. As they're going through this process, we're actually, I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but as we're going through this, we actually are saving as they go. So there's no worried about where am I at in the process and something crashed or I need to come back to it later, whatever the case may be. We're automatically saving all the information. It's a very cyber secure, very, very nice, elegant experience. So if I have employment, we also, from an experience standpoint, they can just simply add more. So it's a really nice way to gather the data or share data. They can add and remove sections as they go through the process, but they're going to go through and complete this fact finder. I'm not going to bore you with filling the whole thing out, but I can put any data in here. And then we also have the ability to share information, add notes as they're going through here, upload documents, again, all cyber secure. Filling all this information out, and then when they get to the end, you can see we have little notes that we can pop up and give them some guidance as they go through the process. And then I go ahead and hit finish. So as the end investor, they get a nice little email. They're done. They've collected all this data, and now back in PreciseFP, a couple of things. So from an advisor perspective, so first of all, we have a full history of all the detail of what's been happening. So you can see, Dale just completed this engagement, was accessed. So very, very nice, history of what's been going on if you want to drill in and see anything that's been happening in the platform. We also can go into Dale's profile, show you a couple things in here that are kind of interesting. So Dale completed this engagement, made some updates. So anything that we track any changes. So let's say you're doing your annual review, you've got a bunch of information on Dale. Maybe you came in from Redtail or Wealthbox, that's kind of your gold source of data. You refresh the data in the system. Now you sent this fact finder out. Dale's gone through and just kind of reviewed it all. And then you made a couple of changes. So yep, everything looks good. So you enter data once and then you never have to rekey any other data again. But if he had come in and made changes, for example, I changed this address, we identify any changes here. So it's nice from an advisor perspective, they can quickly review and say, oh, look at that, there was a couple of changes. Maybe send out the annual review. I don't know, Dale was married, now he selected divorce, that pops up, okay, that's something that should probably, it's a life event, I should probably reach out to Dale. But we track all the changes in the system. So super easy for the advisor to see exactly what was changed in the platform from a data perspective. But now we've got this really rich data that we've collected. And now what are we gonna do with it? So from Dale, I can go ahead and now export this and send this data out to whatever systems I have associated. So I just have a few set up in my demo account here. But for example, I could export it out to Redtail. We'll automatically connect into these other systems. If they've already got account linked, we'll link it automatically. So we can just update Dale once you link it one time. If it's not linked, you can go ahead and just do a search. And we'll automatically SSO and search for the records that exist in that system, and then you can link it to that, or you could create a new record in those other systems. So it's a really nice way to gather that data and then move that data around between the different platforms. And then finally, before we jump over and talk about Income Lab, just to share with you, here are the integrations. This is actually a publicly available. So if you just do a Google search on PreciseFP and partners, you'll get to this page. So we actually publish all of our integrations, and you can actually drill in and see, for example, if you wanted to know what we map into Redtail, give you a little description, explain what it is. And then if you want to see what all the data we map, you can actually go in and look at the mapping tables. A little more detail than some people care about, but it's really interesting to see all the information that we map for every integration, whether or not it's bi-directional, how that data flows and exactly what we map. So it's a really nice way to go in and just see all the information that you can move around with PreciseFP. And I think that will kind of cover the high level, engagement with the client, that collection of the data, the moving of the data, and then bringing that back in to the platform and then sharing that with other systems. So with that, I will turn it over to Justin to walk us through our Income Lab.
All right, thank you, Richard. That was really cool. As a product guy, I appreciate all of the features you went over there. Some of those little pieces are really helpful and useful. Okay, so I'm going to start by talking a little bit about Income Lab, what it is, how advisors use it, how they use it with clients, and then we'll talk a little bit about the PreciseFP Income Lab integration, give you a demo of how that works, which is pretty awesome, and then we can hopefully move on to questions. Thanks. So has everybody seen my screen, the Income Lab screen?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so Income Lab is retirement income planning and management software. So you can think of it as the kind of thing that you use when someone's near, at, or in retirement. It's not holistic financial planning. You're not going to find like specialized college planning or something in here. It is 100% focused on retirement income planning, and it's really built around a different way to think about what retirement is like and how clients want to experience their relationship with their advisor during retirement. So one thing that is a little bit shocking to people who are used to kind of accumulation-based planning or holistic planning is that there's no probability of success built in here. So there is not a score that you're trying to maximize for a client. Instead, the first place that an Income Lab plan starts is by taking all of the household's resources, the things that they can bring to bear on retirement to help fund their lifestyle, getting all those resources in place, and you can see why the PreciseFP integration would be useful for that, and then answering the question, what can I spend? Because we found that a lot of times advisors would tell us, well, I used to ask, how much would you like to spend? Oh, you're 2 years from retirement. How much do you think you want to spend? And the clients would just say, well, how much can I spend? Because we're used to in our working years just living within our means, right? As my grandma says, just spend less than you make. It's easy. And so the problem in retirement is you don't know what you make, right? So the first question is, well, what can I have? And so this is just a demo household, but they have, 3.5 million in a variety of different account types. They've got their taxable account, they've got a Roth, they've got an IRA. And they also have lots of other things. They actually have 2 Social Securities. John and Mary both have their own Social Security, and they have a pension. I could have all sorts of things in here. I could have rental properties. I could have, one-time events like selling an asset, and so on. But the key is, okay, what are all the resources that I can bring to bear on funding my lifestyle? We also want to have some goals, kind of the most important goals. So for example, this household has a mortgage that they're still paying off, which is why right here you see, total planned income is going down. But what's really interesting is you don't have to do a full budget. Again, that's actually a positive generally, because a lot of advisors tell us clients don't love the budgeting process. You spent the last 40 or 50 years, being an adult, and suddenly somebody wants to know, how many Starbucks lattes you're buying. So this is really saying, hey, given that you have these goals and these resources, here's what else you can spend. And now, if you want to do a full budget on that, fine. But that's the goal. So, for example, if I added, $1 million legacy goal, meaning I want my portfolio to be $1 million when I die, and I want that to be adjusted for inflation, I can just add that goal.
So you don't want to use the B word of budgeting as much.
And now my spending capacity, what I can spend, given that I also have that goal, has gone down, right? So it's always trying to say, hey, what can you spend given your resources and given your explicit goals? I have the mortgage as an explicit goal. I could have long-term care. I could have a, around the world trip. I could have a trip to Disneyland. Whatever you want to put in there is fine, but it's always going to say, okay, given that you have those goals, here's what else you can spend. Now, the other thing that you'll see in Income Lab is it's not built around success and failure. As I said, there's no probability of success built in here. Instead, it's built around the risks and rewards of spending. Or another way to view it, which you can see down here, is your risk of overspending and your risk of underspending. People who have financial advisors are often at more risk of underspending than overspending, because retirement is such an anxiety-producing thing, and because probability of success drives them to a lower and lower spending level. They could actually be, if you have 100% probability of success, by definition, that means you have a 100% chance of underspending. What that is telling you is, hey, in every one of these scenarios that we ran for you, you could have spent more. That's what 100% probability of success means. That's not what success means to, humans. That's not what success means to you or your clients. Success there means, living the best life I can. So it's about balancing the risks of overspending and underspending. So what we also do is we say, well, okay, you can spend $17,900 a month, but if things get better and your risk of underspending, so now you're really, really being too frugal, we'll let you know you could spend more. The thing people tend to care more about is if things get worse, at some point, your risk of overspending is too high, and now it's time to tap the brakes. So now you're able to tell clients, okay, here's what you can spend, and here's our projected guardrails for how we would adjust that over time. So if tomorrow you woke up and you had 2.6 million instead of 3.5 million, I would be suggesting that you cut your spending by $800 a month. Now, in the actual fact, somebody might say, instead of doing that, I'm going to get rid of that $1,000 portfolio legacy goal. Maybe that wasn't as important to me as I thought. But advisors will use this both to set expectations with clients that retirement's not pass fail. It's about adjustments, and you're their guide along the way. So you're going to help them. We sometimes compare this to GPS, right? So if there's a traffic problem ahead, we're gonna, potentially provide a detour for you to help you continue hitting your goals. Now, it's possible, people have different attitudes toward adjustment, toward that trade-off between risk and reward. And so we also provide a way to explore that. You might be the kind of client who you have lots of resources and comparatively you don't spend that much. And so, you're fine with 16.3 per month and you get a nice big buffer before you get to your lower guardrail, right? Because your risk of overspending is very, very low. So it's going to take a long time for that risk to rise. Or you might be the kind of person, you're young, you're healthy, you're active. You say, you know what, let's live a little. I get it. Maybe I'll have to pull back more, but I'd rather do it now, right? I don't want to regret missing out on, this time when I was young and healthy. Okay, I'm going to spend 18.9, but now my buffer's 21%, right? I go down to 2.76. Now I have to make an adjustment, whereas before I could get all the way down to 2.37. So there's no one right answer here. It's just a conversation with your clients about kind of where do we want to be? What's your attitude toward adjustment? The other place you can explore that concept of adjustment is in the retirement stress test. So here we take this exact plan with its resources, its goals, its guardrails, and we subject it to the kind of memorable, iconic, and in a lot of cases difficult times that we all remember from the past, and we say, how would this plan have reacted? So how would you have had to adjust your income if you were following this plan to a T through these periods? So for example, the global financial crisis, we can see, if I add the balance and guardrails view here, we can see how, we all remember this, from November of 07 through March of 09, that account balance would have gone down and eventually you would have hit your lower guardrail. That would have meant going from, at this point, we would have been planning to spend 15.8 a month, going down to 14.4. In November of 13, I get a raise. Now I'm almost back to my planned income level. And finally in December of 14, I get another raise, and now I'm actually above my planned level. So you can help a client understand, it's not that we know we're gonna relive the global financial crisis. We're not. But this is a real example of a real story that can help somebody understand what you mean by adjustments and help them kind of understand whether this is the kind of thing they could have stomached. Is that too big of an adjustment? Would they have felt bad about that? Okay, maybe we need to tweak the plan, make it less aggressive, change the portfolio. Now, on the other hand, if you had retired, at the bottom of the market in the global financial crisis, you would have seen, nothing but pay raises along the way, right? So a lot of this is also a way to show kind of sequence of return risk and what the world you happen to live through, how much effect that has on your life. So the combination of this kind of short-term plan and that stress test really help people understand what a real retirement experience looks like. And Income Lab also allows you to monitor a plan automatically. So using integrations, every month we will update a plan. That just means, we just update everything. It's like rerunning the plan completely and stepping forward in time. So, we're in March of 24 now. Well, by the time we're in April of 26, things will have changed, right? Here we can see John will have started Social Security, our portfolio will be different, and so on. So we'll step that forward in time for you, and we'll let you know how this is developing. Have we moved closer to the upper guardrail, the income increase, or toward the lower guardrail? You can see what that experience would be like, again, in the stress test. For example, a lot of people experience this from 21 to 22. This plan never quite hit its lower guardrail, but wow, it got close a couple times, right? And still, we're not out of the weeds completely today, but you got a $200,000 gap still. So you would see this happening, and what we hear from people is that in 2022, this was a totally different experience than someone who sees their probability of success go from 90 to 60. When they see that, they call you and say, wait, I had an A, now I have a D, fix it, right? So that's the wrong expectation that we're setting up for clients. Whereas if we set up, hey, within this range, we don't need to do anything, but at some point we'll make an adjustment. They're seeing it coming, and they can, kind of see for themselves, okay, if we hit that guardrail, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have to cut $800 from my spending, or make some other change. Like I said, maybe get rid of the legacy goal. Lots of other things you can do in Income Lab. One thing that's very relevant to our PreciseFP integration is you can view the pieces of the plan, every single one of them, in kind of an enhanced balance sheet where you're not just looking at assets and liabilities, but you're looking at cash flows, income, expenses, transfers and savings, Roth conversions, and so on. So for example, I'll go to a plan here that has Roth conversions. Very easy to create lots of plan scenarios. I can explode the whole thing, or I can fine tune exactly what I'm looking at. I can actually do my editing and plan building here. So I could change the allocation, I can change the account type, and so on. But now I can show clients how their plan develops over time, and sometimes that's almost one of the biggest things clients want to understand is that, okay, first we're going to fund this with the pension and portfolio withdrawals. A lot of those withdrawals are actually Roth conversions, so they're not really staying out of the portfolio, they're coming back in. Okay, and then in 26, John's Social Security starts. And as I go through, okay, now in 29, I finally get a little bit of Mary's, and in 30, she's fully, she gets a full year of Social Security. So now 86,000 of my spending is from Social Security, still have the pension, and my portfolio withdrawals are much lower. So showing them kind of the pieces of the puzzle, how these things fit together, how things are changing over time, is a really great use of this. There's pieces in here like on the timeline, you'll see these milestones, paying off your mortgage, for example, starting Social Security for both of them. You can see kind of a little dance at the top on the timeline. You can also show this in more of a flow diagram to see, okay, how exactly we're creating the income, where's it going, and so on. I'm showing Roth conversions here. That comes from another part of the software, which is the tax lab, which says, given that I have a plan with its resources, its withdrawals, and so on, how should I do those withdrawals in such a way that I can be tax efficient? Should I consider Roth conversions? So this takes that plan and it runs it through a bunch of different ways you could source your withdrawals, including Roth conversions. And here we can see that it looks like for this family who has quite a bit in IRAs and 403Bs, Roth conversions are probably going to be useful. And you can see how it affects the average tax rate, total taxes, total net income, total net legacy. This plan is actually using Roth conversions to the 22% federal income tax bracket. Technically, doing more aggressive Roth conversions would potentially be better, but there's some art as well as science here. I mean, you can see even the 24% bracket is barely different. So we often see people who say, well, yeah, I get it, doing more aggressive Roth conversions might be better, but I only have the stomach for, smaller conversions. So I can look at it that way. I can share with my clients the value of doing tax smart distribution planning here. This is incredibly effective with helping clients understand the value of this kind of planning. But you can also show them, hey, what this means is, we are going to pay some higher taxes up front, and that's going to mean, it's going to take longer for there to be a break even. So in this case, this break even is quite far out. If I were a little bit more aggressive, I probably could move that break even a little bit closer, right? So now I'm a little more than 20 years out. So this is a great way to help people understand, although Roth conversions here could be really effective for you and definitely for your heirs, there's no free lunch, right? So we do want to make sure we could live a little while to let those have an effect. Also in the tax lab is a very detailed section to help you understand how different types of income are stacking up in this plan, and even a full table kind of showing, okay, here are the Roth conversions, here's when the RMDs start, and so on. All right, so I want to give an example of how you would use the PreciseFP integration here. So typically to create a household, you have a couple different ways. You can use a quick create, which is just a super fast, kind of typing in some information quickly. Think of it almost like a, I can show you what it looks like. So if I start, and just keep going, right? I can do that. I can add, income streams. I can add Social Security and so on. You can also do it via more of a stepper experience. So a plan looks like this. You've got basic plan info. You have the assets, Social Security, and other income liabilities. And you can add lots of other things to the plan. These are optional. So kind of like I was saying, you don't have to do budgeting. So expenses is actually optional. Savings is optional, since often people might already be in retirement, so we don't need to view that. But all of this does require some work. Whereas if I already have a profile in PreciseFP and I've gotten it there, either through one of these templates, or I've aggregated data from somewhere else, from Redtail, from another planning platform, all I have to do is hit import households. Now I only have a PreciseFP integration here. We do have other integrations, so if you would choose your integration, and then just search for the household. And okay, I have one in here. It has 5 investment accounts and lots of other things as well. And now it's going to try to import. Now it does remind you that some of this could be incomplete. There might be some spots that you want to go back and review. So don't assume that everything is perfect. Now I only tried to import one, and that import was successful. None of them failed. So now I have my household. If I go to PreciseFP, I'll see I've got names, I've got birthdays, ages, I've got employment, annual income, I have some life insurance, I have lots of accounts and so on. So if I go to this new household, I should see all of those things mapped over to Income Lab. And I get an income plan. So I get the account balance, right? Here are all those different accounts, right? I got 5 accounts that came over. I got some banking accounts. I got some other assets. And then using that and some defaults, we've already built a plan with all of its cash flows, with some expenses. So the only expense I had in PreciseFP was this home insurance premium. And I can see all of the pieces in the Life Hub section here. So, for example, it looks like I didn't have any Social Security in my PreciseFP profile. Well, I'm probably going to want to add that. But I'm going to want to review these and make sure that they came over with the right, owner and asset levels and so on. But this is a great place to do that and just, edit those things on the fly, right? So if it turns out, I don't know, for some reason, well, this sure looks like it's John's IRA, but if for some reason we're wrong, it came over wrong, I just switch it to Mary. I'm probably going to want to change the name as well. But that's the kind of thing we could just do to make sure that that the plan is accurate. But you can see if everything mapped over correctly, there's actually no work to do here other than to start asking questions like, okay, is this a spending capacity that I'm comfortable with, or do I want to play around with, maybe this is the kind of household that they're not spending $15,000 and really $14,500 is plenty, or maybe they want to spend more. It's the kind of place where I can start doing work in the tax lab, asking, should I be doing Roth conversions and so on. So I've kind of skipped the entire step of building the plan just by importing the household. Great thing about PreciseFP and that integration is it's not just portfolio balances and basis and so on that you're bringing over. That's super important, and it's especially important if you're managing a plan over time, because those updates of account balances are great to have. But I've also been able to bring in lots of other things, you know, assets, liabilities, and so on, which you wouldn't get through an integration with, you know, just a Charles Schwab or you know, even a you know, an Orion or something that's more portfolio focused. So you get a lot of richness here, which I know advisors love. There is a plan, we've had this question before, there is a plan to create an Income Lab template in PreciseFP just to really streamline your work with the PreciseFP Income Lab integration. So, you know, look for that in the future. But with that, maybe we can move on to questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much for demonstrating everything, Justin and Richard. That was really helpful. And I agree. Once we go ahead and make that specific engagement for Income Lab, I think that'll add a lot of value to offices because, you know, we can make sure that we are grabbing liabilities, expenses, income, Social Security. You can even make those fields mandatory in PreciseFP so they, you know, won't move on to the next question until those fields are filled out. So you as the advisor will be able to do your job of getting the data that you need and having those graphs be accurate. We also can have clients upload statements as well. So if you don't want them to manually enter in the data, even though that's kind of the nice thing with PreciseFP, is your client is entering their own information so that good, clean data is feeding right over into those other systems. But, you know, if you do want to offer that white glove service, you can go ahead and ask for them to upload those statements. They'll come over securely and you as an office can go ahead and put in that data. I do have a few questions. I know that, you know, you showed those guardrails, and what if I'm in retirement and you show me that my income can increase and I'm like, yes, I really want that extra $500 for the casino each month or whatever. What is that time frame looking at? Is that saying like in the next 6 months you could get this extra income or the next year?
Yeah, so this is I was using monthly. Just, you know, a lot of us are used to thinking monthly. A lot of our bills are due monthly, you know, your credit card bill and your, you know, a lot of people are paying their just lots of your utilities, things like that. But you can view things annually if you prefer. And actually, when it comes to adjustments, that's often easier to wrap your head around because when we're trying to make sure people aren't, you know, we call it the regret zone. So we're not underspending. People sometimes ask, well, what's the problem with underspending? Isn't that, you know, that's good. Well, to a point, right? So people in surveys say that their goal in retirement is basically to live a fulfilling life, right? It's to do what they can with what they have. And so the annual view here, okay, now I can see, you know, I'm not talking about $700 a month, you know, I'm talking about $8,000. What can I do with $8,000, right? Is there something on my bucket list, something I've been hoping to do? You know, a lot of times finding fulfillment in retirement is about finding that next passion, right? Okay, well, maybe that passion actually requires some money. Well, you know, I have $8,000. Maybe it's a local charity I'm working with. Maybe it's a trip to Disneyland with the grandkids while I'm still young and they're still young. You know, I'm not going to be able to wait 10 years and they're 21. They're not going to want to go then. So those are the kinds of things that people have that discussion on. On the adjustment on the downside, it often monthly works pretty well because now you're just saying, you know, are we already living within our means with 15.1? And we're doing some fun extra stuff, but yeah, I could trim $600. It wouldn't be that hard. By the way, often when you hit these down guardrails, people have already kind of clammed up. If you think about COVID or the global financial crisis, you know, often people might come to the office, you know, expecting worse news than this. So, and maybe have already thought about how to trim spending in a bad time. So yeah, definitely it's, you can choose how to present that to a client.
Oh, awesome. And is this going to be something that you're, you know, presenting during a meeting, or is this a client facing, you know, they could log in at home?
So people do typically present it in a meeting, or they might create PDFs. We have a whole report center to create, you know, PDFs using different pieces and views from the app. But I know that advisors will sometimes just do things live. In particular, the Life Hub is a really great kind of experience. You can do a client portal, so clients can interact with this. You may use that just for an aggregator, because we have a Yodlee link, although you may have other sources of aggregation on your tech stack. But you can give them read-only access, or you can even let them have edit access. Often people will do that just at least for a little while, but what I hear from advisors is they don't often give edit access. You don't want clients playing with things too much. So, but there is a client.
Messing up your hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love the tax advice portion, because all the data is kind of showing that's the #1 underprovided service, and it's kind of the most requested service on the client side. So that is great that you're helping advisors make those decisions that people are wanting to see.
Yeah, for sure. And I think there's one thing we hear a lot is like, I didn't do anything here, right? I just had a plan and I went to the tax lab and it did all the work for me. So now I can explore them. As I said, it's not, I'm just going to blindly accept what the software says, right? I mean, maybe I will play with it a bit, but it at least gives me a place to give real data to clients on the value. It's also, it's the evidence you need to make the advice. Sometimes people will have a feeling that Roth conversions are a good idea, but you really need to actually have done the work to understand, because we will see clients where actually Roth conversions are not going to add value. They typically tend to be a little older, maybe into their 70s or something, or maybe they don't have a lot of tax deferred money, and so it's not going to add value. So it's really helpful.
Okay, perfect. And what's kind of the average age of client that you see most valuable in here? Like, would you be, running a client who's 50 to see what would happen if they increase their contributions now? What would happen in retirement?
You definitely can do that, because if it's a pre-retirement plan, it will, instead of saying, hey, here's what you can spend this month, it'll say, here's what we're projecting you might be able to spend at your retirement date. And so then you can do multiple plans with different contribution levels, different retirement dates, and so on. I would say, though, typically people use this for people who are maybe 5 years or less from retirement. It doesn't mean it can't be used before that, but you asked kind of average age. It's certainly in the 50s and 60s is where we see this typically starting. Now, if you have a early retirement client, they could be in their 40s retiring next year, right? So, and then you could certainly use that. So it's really about, when does this kind of framing of your life in terms of what can I spend, how do I use my resources, when does that become relevant? And then, yeah, go for it.
All right. And we do have some great questions that came in. John Lugo, first of all, said, by the way, Income Lab rocks. So love to see that. He also said, currently using both PreciseFP and Income Lab. Is there currently a map for PreciseFP that will pull client data into Income Lab? So I think a few people are kind of asking this question of, like, visually they want to see all of the fields that are going to feed over, or maybe like a rough number of the number of fields, because I know at the very least, you want the name, the balance, the amount, the cost basis, ownership, type. But there's much more than those 5 fields, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, our product and development team really look to maximize the field mapping. I don't think a mapping is available, but we should probably create one to help users. I do know that right now we are only pulling over default fields. So if you've done a lot of customization, that we will not map those. So that's where actually doing more of a custom Income Lab template may help. So that is a current limitation that we could work with you on. But if you're kind of doing things with out of the box PreciseFP, it should all map over really well.
Great. And Joanne's asking, can you move e-money data back into PreciseFP, specifically account balances, and then import to Income Lab through PreciseFP?
I believe the answer is yes. I mean, I haven't done it personally, but.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely. Yeah, yep, yeah, you can absolutely, yeah, we have really deep integration with e-money. So bidirectional, so you can bring that money or bring all that data back in, sync it up in PreciseFP, and then suck that into Income Labs. Absolutely.
Great. And then David's asking, is PreciseFP a direct competitor with Asset Map, or are there reasons to have both programs?
We're not. I don't know if you saw in the integration partners, but we partner with Asset Map, so we can actually share data with Asset Map and all the other 30 plus applications. They're just different animals. So we're really about gathering data, sharing data, doing that in a cyber secure way. There's a little, crossover into some of these other applications because there's other ways of doing some of this work, but really very, very little. We're all about the data, the client experience, that customizable, really engaged experience for the end investor. Super simple, super low learning curve for the advisor to use the platform. So very, very little overlap. We actually have a really nice integration with Asset Map as well.
Great. Yeah, and Joanne just commented too, perfect, because essentially what we're talking about here, guys, is you're going to be able to gather this income, level data and contact level data from PreciseFP. But kind of what Joanne was asking was, can I use where my data is in other places like eMoney, put that into PreciseFP, and then put that into Income Lab? So PreciseFP is really serving nicely as that middleman when necessary as well. Dean is asking, does Income Lab integrate with eMoney Advisor?
We do not have a direct integration with eMoney. I know that from what we hear, they've heard from a lot of advisors that they would like one. But yeah, PreciseFP is the way to go if you want that right now.
Well, we'll be that middleman, right? All right. And then John says we've used both Income Lab, Asset Map, and eMoney. Each planning tool has its own mapping into and out of PreciseFP. We're unable to pull the data from eMoney into PreciseFP and then into Income Lab. Is there an ETA on the PreciseFP Income Lab template? Oh, this one's a different question.
But I know it's it's definitely a priority from what we've heard from advisors.
Yes, and I think today's presentation will help kind of flesh it out a little bit more, because when you are making a PreciseFP engagement, you're able to create that nice welcome page that kind of tells your client what exactly is going on in the next few pages. So, maybe the language that we can use in that welcome page is something like, we want to see how things can change over time. We want to represent any milestones of mortgages or Social Security kicking in. So, give us the following data fields and, map that out exactly in a template for you. All right, and John just asking, wondering if there's a good master map we should use. Yes, yeah, so we're gonna come out with that. I think what you're referring to is on PreciseFP, you have those tables that will visually show you all of the fields that will sync over. We're gonna finalize that and get that live on our help desk on the Income Lab page. So you'll be able to visually see and quantify exactly how many fields we'll be feeding over. But Justin, do you have a rough estimate? I know they're, when you're including liabilities, expenses, income, Social Security, we're talking at least more than 50 fields, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a bit you can do in Income Lab, so it'll be a very rich set of fields, and that mapping is going to be quite large.
Great. All right, Christopher is saying, if customizing a template on PreciseFP and pulling data groups from other existing PreciseFP templates, will Income Lab know where to put those data fields and groups?
So currently, we're just ignoring anything where we don't know what it is. And so if you've named something, if you've made some customizations, it's not doing that. But the goal with this, to further enrich our integration with PreciseFP is to help you do that.
Hey, Nora, maybe I could share a little bit about on PreciseFP how it works, just to explain that a little bit further. So in PreciseFP, no matter what template you use, you go gather this data, and then we sync it up to the client profile. So as Justin showed, we got this exhaustive list of a standard, what we call a data set, where we can put all this information. All that information is available to go over to Income Lab. So what we're going to do is create an optimized one for Income Lab, so they can say, here's all of the standard data set, here's the data that we need, and then you can use a template that will go gather that data as a standard. But as Justin said today, if you've made customizations to your data set within PreciseFP, those won't flow over to Income Lab. But we'll get a customized template out there that has it optimized for all the data that Income Lab needs to really limit the amount of data input you're going to have to do in Income Lab or go collect it from other sources.
Really great. And you guys have awesome questions. Thank you so much for sharing these. Looks like we covered them all. If you have any other follow-up questions, feel free to click on that chat icon in PreciseFP, or Justin, do you have a good email address if there's specific questions?
Yeah, you can just go to incomelaboratory.com or incomelab.io, or just Google us. I mean, we're the first thing that comes up. And there's a contact page there. That's probably the best way to do it. You could email info@incomelab.io, but that's a great place to find. Also, a lot of videos and articles and things if you're more interested in diving deeper into what we do.
All right, but otherwise, everyone, thank you so much for your time today. Feel free to reach out to us with any other questions, and we're more than happy to help. But otherwise, have a great rest of the day. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.